Well, we are following the latest development in the ongoing debate over mask mandates in schools across South Carolina. Today, the Supreme Court here in the Palmetto State issued a decision in the case of the City of Columbia versus Attorney General Alan Wilson, siding with the AG and saying that the city's mask requirement for students in schools goes against the law. Attorney General Alan Wilson argued that citywide mask mandate, which included Columbia schools, went against a temporary law written into the state budget. It's part of a provision which prohibits mask mandates in school buildings in the Palmetto State. It is a hot topic here across the state, but there's still a lot more to unpack from the judge's opinions. Our own Matt Koufax live outside the Greenville County School District office with more.
Cody, here in the upstate, many school districts, including Greenville County, the state's largest school system, were waiting on this ruling to see if down the line, if they wanted to, they would have the authority to issue a mask mandate. And while it seems like this ruling is pretty cut and dry on the surface, one legal expert tells me there are still a lot of questions in play here. And that attorney is John Reckenbile. He's based in Malden. He says this ruling makes sense in terms of the language of the law. He says the authority of a city does not trump the authority of a state government, which is why he thinks this played out this way. But it gets a lot more confusing when you dive into the judge's opinions from this ruling. While it does say that the judges believe Columbia's mask law or ordinance conflicts with the state law, it essentially goes on to say that it's now up to the city school system to decide whether they want to follow the state law or obey the city ordinance. They're leaving it up to them. And remember, and we can't stress this point enough for the folks at home, but remember, the proviso the legislator passed prohibiting masks in schools doesn't make a mask mandate illegal. It simply takes away a big portion of a district's state funding for issuing one. Essentially, they're using the power of the purse to influence policy. Reckenbile says judges went out of their way in this ruling to stress they were not issuing an opinion on masks being right or wrong themselves, which he says ultimately does not give school districts any clearer direction and doesn't answer the overarching question still on masks.
Doesn't make a lot of sense factually because they're not answering the factual question. I think that's exactly the point that's going to come across, is that if local school districts believe that it's in their best interest to do it and they do it, well, then they're just going to have to find money elsewhere, and that's where the Biden administration says that they're going to try to provide funding for those schools that are, defunded.
Reckenbile also points out the court is only striking down the portion of Columbia's mask mandate that deals with masks in schools specifically. Judges did not disagree with the mask ordinance that would still apply to all other citizens within the city limits. He says for now, it appears those mask requirements for anyone who's not part of the school system will stick, and that could influence a lot of other cities and municipalities here in South Carolina. He also says that based on the fact that this larger question on masks remains ultimately unanswered, he wouldn't be surprised if there were more legal challenges from, say, parents or other city governments in the future. Cody?